Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Where the Dark Corners Are. Hello, hello. I am Vina, and I am your Dark Travels hostess. Tonight, we have a
road trip with the Panda.
and
In 1995, a team of paranormal travel podcasters found an abandoned cub in the haunted Arctic. After some kick-ass paranormal training and his first alien kill, he was ready. So, if ghosts, serial killers, or monsters in the dark got you scared, don't hesitate to call the Polar Bear. The Polar Bear.
it's kind of been a serious minute since we've been able to play that theme
Yeah,
song
it's been
for
a
you.
while.
He doesn't like us. He's alien hunting.
Or had real world problems, but whatever.
Yeah, he had real world problems.
So how have you been?
Okay.
Okay. Fair statement, I guess. Hiding in a rock?
Yeah. Taking leave of absence.
Yes. But you're here tonight, and tonight we're going to talk about a topic that I think for me was actually kind of cool. It ended up kind of being a little bit more, I guess, adventurous than I thought it would be. But actually, before we tick off on this subject, I did want to give Polar Bear the opportunity to share an incident that happened to him just recently as we were driving to Woodland, California. He was the driver.
It's Panda.
I don't know what we're talking about. He wasn't with this one with the woodland.
Yeah,
Oh,
you,
I'm
you
sorry.
said Polar Bear.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Panda. The Panda when we were driving to Woodland.
We need name tags.
I guess so. I mean, we don't even look like we're in the same clothes.
You were driving and you said, "Oh my God, did you just see that?
The shooting star.
Was it a shooting star or was it an alien coming down?"
Oh, I hope. Well, I'm hoping it's a shooting star.
Well, tell us what happened.
It would look like a shooting star falling out of the sky. We were just driving, and a bright light went across, and I mean, it had the same arc of a shooting star because it dissipated as soon as it went by. But I mean, it was pretty big. I was like, oh, it just happened to be, And I made the joke about the LA aliens that
The ones in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas aliens.
Oh, yeah, the recent thing that happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the government said, aliens are real, so must be true.
Right.
Right.
Their denial. Nobody believed at them. Denial. And I was like, no, they're real. No, they're like, they're real. And everyone's like, I got problems. I don't have time for this shit. Okay, so anyways, you should have seen him. He was like, oh my God, did you see that? That was pretty impressive.
I've seen one that like it wasn't like across the sky shooting star. I was leaving. This was a long time ago, but I was driving and it straight up looked like a meteor coming down, and like because the shooting star you just see it for a second or two as it goes by, but this thing was just like a fireball coming down, and it was like you could probably count good 5 seconds, like 5 Mississippis of this thing going. So I got a little scared.
Right, this might be it.
Yeah, my tush was a little clenched. I was like, uh-oh. But then it just burnt up, and I was like, oh, that was really cool.
The fucking Earth Defense Force kicked in.
Yeah, Space Force.
Yeah, Space Force. They were playing Missile Command.
Well, that's good. So far, it hasn't happened. So so far we're okay.
Yeah.
Who knows what's really going on? But anyways, we're talking about haunted museums around the world, or not in various places in the world. So, I mean, I know when I do like the paranormal itinerary for different towns and stuff, I do my best to include different places for them to see besides haunted places. But I do like to include museums because I think museums are very essential, you know, especially the art museums. I mean, the Panda could tell you that I dragged him to all the museums when we went to London. The Tate, the Metropolitan. Well, that was in New York.
I only remember one real museum and then one fake museum.
Fake?
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, that was fake. It was a real museum.
Well, it's real to your heart, but Sherlock Holmes isn't real.
Is he though? I think he is. Okay. Was there a museum experience that you've ever been to that you just thought that was pretty impressive?
Yeah, I mean, any museum,
Yeah.
you just learn a lot in any one that you go. Back home in Ukraine, last time I visited, which was, I mean, still years ago, we went to a World War II museum. They had a lot of the World War II guns and plane pieces, tank parts, and just stuff because Ukraine was in the,
In the thick of things.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was just a bunch of leftover stuff. I got some USSR coins. I think I got some Nazi coins too.
Oh,
Yeah. It wasn't like super like large museum.
kept
You
it
could
hush
you could
hush.
buy stuff.
You
Yeah.
had to see the good
Wow.
You had to ask for it specifically.
Yeah. Oh, one other cooler thing I see in there was gas mask for horses
Oh,
for
yeah.
the war. Yeah. They would put a gas mask on the horse so
Right.
it wouldn't. Yeah.
So, actually, one of the most curious museums I've ever been to was actually in France. And I remember it was in Cannes, France. And it was a World War II museum. And it was constructed by the French, but it kind of paid a lot of homage or honor to the Americans who liberated their country. I mean, bear in mind, we weren't the only ones in France. We weren't the only ones to land on D-Day. There were the Poles and the British and the Australians and the New Zealanders and other French resistance as well. So it was pretty impressive. And I just it was kind of touching,
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I think to this day that they still honor the liberation of their country by reenacting, to some degree, D-Day. So to bring us back to the topic tonight, we're discussing various haunted museums. So to kick it off, I'm going to actually start with one that is located in Kingsland, England. Now, this is actually a fishing museum called Truyard. It's actually a house from the 18th century, and it's like two fishing cottages combined. Now, it's home to more than 38 ghosts. The paranormal activity includes doors slamming on their own accord, people hearing disembodied voices, and sudden and very sharp drops of temperature. But the thing is that the people in the area, this particular area, the people who lived in these cottages were repeatedly exposed to, disease and death and dying. And this area was generally considered very poor. And, as such, it was overcrowded. So you have disease and other things kind of running rampant. So you basically have a lot of misery and suffering in this particular area. But in conjunction with all of these, just bad juju vibes, murder was actually committed in this particular building. So people have reported seeing a young woman with bulging red eyes and like red marks on her throat. And it is believed that she is the spirit of a young woman who was strangled by her father for basically having fallen in love with the wrong type of man. So, this is something that I do tend to see a lot when I do the ghost paranormal itineraries, is the ghosts of young ladies being murdered by their father or their family simply because they either refuse to marry the quote-unquote right guy, or they have fallen in love with the quote unquote wrong guy.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. Like arranged marriages and stuff like that was real big.
Right, especially if you had money.
Right, yeah, and marrying upwards,
correct,
stuff like that.
Marrying downwards was a death sentence. It sounds like
love had very little to do with marriage.
Right. Still the same thing in 2023. But anyways.
Not in my case. Happily married.
But in addition to the young lady, who the murdered, unfortunate lady, there's also a boy who likes to move things about. He likes to hang out in the kitchen in particular, but he's been known to kind of go everywhere. But his favorite place is the kitchen. And more scarily or more, I don't know, there is a poltergeist by the name of Henry. Henry likes to blow up their light bulbs. He likes knocking the paintings off the walls. He likes throwing objects around the building. Your basic poltergeist behavior stuff. And for some reason, Henry has this absolute hatred towards staplers. Like if they bring a stapler in the building, it's likely he will grab it and throw it right back at you.
That's funny.
So it's just kind of crazy that this is one. I mean, was he stapled to death? I don't know. I mean, it's a poltergeist.
Do we know why his name is Henry? Did
No.
they name him
That's
Henry,
actually-
or did he
right.
die with the name Henry?
Hurricane Henry. Yeah, I don't. I actually did not find that information. Great question. But overall, like when the museum is closed, people have seen the apparition of both the girl and the boy in the windows, and they're basic. And there's also like a mysterious figure that no one knows what this thing is about. Maybe it is the physical features of Henry. I don't know. But basically, when this building is empty and closed, people will see their apparitions in the window. So that is Kingland's.
England.
Yeah, Kingsland, England.
Righteous town.
Right. Well, they have some really cute towns in England.
Yeah, but you just won't eat their food. So.
Well, their food is a little bland.
What's wrong with England?
I've
never been.
That was her lightest way of saying that.
Let's just say that the one thing I was nervous about going to Ireland about was the food, because England's food is a little bland. Was for me, okay? But when I went to Ireland was amazing in terms of the culinary scenario. Like, I was impressed. I was like, oh my God, this is really good. This is just cheese. Oh my God, let me have some more.
So we can never go back to England.
I know. Bring our own
Just
spices.
go to England and drive to Ireland for some food and come back.
That's why we can't go check out this museum, though. That's what I'm saying. We got to go far to find it. And
Take a ferry. It's just a ferry.
just a ferry. You're a ferry.
You're a fairy.
You're a ferry. Would you like me to go next?
Just
Sure.
do the thing.
Okay, I guess I will go next. So I went across the English Channel and stuck it and landed in Paris. And we were going to the most, I guess, considered the most famous museum of all.
And you've been there?
Correct, we have been there. Yes, the Louvre.
Ooh, the Louvre.
Ooh.
Never
Not
been.
talking about the toilet. We're talking about...
That's the Louvre. Louvre.
Yes, so the Louvre, it was established in, I don't even know how to say these. It was a long time ago. Let's say 1,190. Did I say that?
Sure.
Did I say that year? So used to
Year 1000.
1190.
1190.
Oh, 1190. Okay, yeah, established in 1190, but it was actually a fortress. It was like its own little castle set up, and that was basically keeping all of Paris into this one area, one fortress. So, but as it grew, they tore down the walls, and it transformed it into a palace of itself and kept it as a center, which it is basically now. In 1793, it first opened up its museum, and then that pyramid that everyone sees, like Da Vinci Code and everything else, added in the 80s. And if you go to the Louvre, it's over 100 hours worth of stuff. Like, you can't see everything in a day. I think you said it was physically
You
impossible.
gotta go do a week.
I think you have. It's like it's like 3 or 4 years.
I think it's 10. I think what it was is if you spend 30 seconds at each, like, actual object, not talking about like small
exhibit.
Yeah, or not even exhibit, but like I don't explain that individual. But if you spend 30 seconds on each thing you're trying to look at, it will take you 10 days to do all of them.
Jesus, thing's
So,
huge.
So hit the big stuff first. The big stuff.
Right. So everyone goes to see the Mona Lisa, which, by the way, I mean it's cool. But people like died for this thing, and
you're like,
well, I want to say even a small war was started because of it. It was stolen. I mean, it just I wouldn't have stolen it. Like, oh,
she has no eyebrows, guys.
Well, it's not even that. It's just it's fucking small. Okay,
it is.
The box to Catan is about the same size as.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's small.
Yeah, I thought it was like.
There's a clock in this room, and you guys can't see it. It's not circular, but it's about it's maybe that size, if not just slightly bigger. But it's small. It's like, what the fuck? You expected this grand thing, because I think in the movies and stuff, it's even
bigger.
Yeah, it's like an actual painting size or something. But either way. So then outside there's the Tuileries Garden. And now that was part of the Palace Tuileries, which was made by Catherine de' Medici, who was the wife of King Henry II. And that garden is actually one of the oldest gardens, if not the oldest garden in France. And you can see it when you're outside in the Louvre. But the way they had to set up for the palaces, so when she came into power because her husband actually had died, she started, so it was already like in this U shape of the palace around the Louvre, which was in the middle, which still is now. And then she added on this palace to basically make it a square. Okay. So there was the U part, and then she just added that last part. And she basically boxes in the Louvre and kind of cuts it off from everybody else. I mean, you could still go do whatever, but it made a full uniform. So now, when she was building this in fucking back in the 16th century, she arrives there, and to her dismay, when she gets there, she meets the Little Red Man, also known as L'Homme Rouge, which is Red Man, the Red Man. So now the Red Man has been described as a ghost / demon. It kind of goes back and forth of it all. But some of them describe it as a small man dressed in red from head to toe, scarlet red, or just had red skin. But the problem was every time someone saw it, or he wasn't there to talk to you or do whatever, he would vanish and do his own thing. So when she arrived at the palace to move in, he was there waiting for her. So the origin of the Red Man is kind of two stories. One, they said he just was awakened when they built the palace to cause dismay and bring down whoever he wanted into the palace. The other story was that he was actually an assassin that Catherine had hired while she was reigning power, and she would hire him to go kill and then be her
right-hand man,
her butcher, as they called him.
Okay.
And so but at one point he either got too greedy or she was getting too greedy. He knew all her secrets and everything else, so she's like, well, he's a loose end. So she took care of him in the gardens of the palace.
Oh.
So this could be his entity, kind of.
Correct, to basically get revenge and cause problems. So the only thing, for her, the only thing the demon or the Red Man specified to her was that you're going to die in Saint Germain, which is a place in France, but she actually never went to Saint Germain. But the thing that came full circle when she was doing her last wishes, when she was kind of not feeling well, she met the friar that was named Saint Germain, and then she actually died. So
a little Macbeth prophecy going on there.
A little bit. He appeared back in 1610 for King Henry IX. He saw him, and then literally after they had done whatever they were doing, so they see the Red Man, or somehow the king has said that he's met the Red Man, and right after that he was assassinated by a loony school teacher.
Oh.
So
it's almost like a forbearing of death or a tragedy of some sort.
Correct. So every time so at this point, it's kind of establishing
Pattern.
The pattern of every time you see the red man, it's not a good sign what's going to happen. Because the next thing happens, 1792, seen by King Louis the 16th.
Uh-oh. You know what's about to happen to this guy, right? 1792?
King Louis was en route to try to escape the palace, but they find the red man in his bedchambers relaxing as King Louis is trying to make a way out of there. And it's also rumored that he meets King Louis and Marie Antoinette in the prison. So, because by this time it's the revolution happening and they're changing of the government and everything else. So it's rumored that the red man actually was seen by guards in the jail cell or the prison cell talking to them. So now, they didn't specify what they're talking about because it was just between them, but they still get killed like the next day from the guillotine.
So witnesses actually saw him.
Correct. Guards state that they seen the red man talking to both Marie Antoinette and King Louis, and also seeing him in the fucking bed chambers of King Louis.
Wow.
So
That's really cool.
But the best version is Napoleon himself actually meets and writes in his diaries about the Little Red Man.
So he met him a couple times then.
Correct. So the first time he meets him was 1798, but he meets him in Egypt because Napoleon at this time is doing an Egypt campaign for the Battle of the Pyramids and just conquering the world. So he specifies that he meets the Red Man, and the story goes that he makes a deal with Napoleon, stating, so this is the first time we hear a conversation about a deal, so maybe this is the first person who takes a deal. But he promises Napoleon, you'll have 10 years of good luck in your war, your campaign, and it doesn't specify what he gets in return, so maybe he wants something, maybe his soul, or he just likes playing around with it. So 10 years go by, and Napoleon, as we know, becomes one of the greatest conquerors
In Europe.
Yeah, in Europe. But after his 10 years comes up, the Red Man visits him again and states, and Napoleon asks for 5 more years. He's like, okay, deal, but you can't attack Russia.
Oh.
But knowing Napoleon, knowing how greedy he is, he's like, okay, cool. But then, the Red Man heeds a warning to him. It's like, look, I know what you're saying to my face. I'm just paraphrasing here, but the actual phrase, he does say, he's been around him forever, and he states that he's known him since he was as a schoolboy, and I know you better than you know yourself.
So he knew he was going to ignore the warning.
So maybe he just wanted to tempt him about what not to do. He's like, well, fuck that guy. I'm going to go do it anyways.
Right.
So as we know, Napoleon charges Russia.
Which was a big mistake.
Loses everything, gets exiled, and then he comes back. And then the Red Man comes a third time, and he tells he wants me to say, hey, I'm ready to make another deal. He's like, well, first you got to I'm going to give you 3 months to make peace with everybody, or make it right, or your whole thing's going to fall apart. And next thing you know, Napoleon is like, cool, yeah, that's fine. But then, he goes on his own greedy tyrant and gets defeated at Waterloo. He was also there for seen again at another king's deathbed. Just seen he was dying already for something else. So maybe he was late. Not sure.
Maybe he was trying to save him.
Yeah, maybe he's trying to make another deal before he died. But shortly thereafter, then more revolters and everything else of Paris. Paris went through a lot of changes. So they actually burned down that palace. And so they were able to save the palace itself, but in a certain time, they ended up just tearing the rest of it down because whatever was left was ruins of the palace. So, but after that, the sightings of the Red Man have not been seen. But that's the biggest folklore around for that little area at the Louvre itself.
Right. Well, you had mentioned that it used to be a fortress. Well, I remember when we went to Paris, we went down into the bottom basement, and you could still see the walls of the original fort. And I think you and I once had a conversation, Polar Bear, about the werewolves and how people were living in fortresses because of the werewolves scenario in France.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason why, back then, 11th century, 10th century, they were paranoid about, the wildness and mythical creatures and whatnot. And that's why a lot of people tended to live in fortresses, in the castles, for safety reasons. So that was a good one.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was, I like all the stories of like deal with the devil and the Illuminati.
Right. So there's
shit,
even
like,
a 2 paintings or pictures or how you want to describe, or propaganda even. So I think the word of the red devil spread, or the little red man spread, and actually has a devil demon looking feller holding a baby that's supposed to be Napoleon himself wrapped in the thing. So maybe he was grooming him till this point, and then to do whatever he wanted to cause chaos or whatever he wanted.
mm-hmm.
And there's another one where it's a red demon flying over a cannon, and it seems to be a general, which just happens to be a French general looking feller, and he's peeing on the cannon. So it's almost like he's cooling it off.
Okay. I don't remember seeing those pictures in the Louvre, but okay.
They're there, I swear.
You saw them?
I seen them.
Okay.
Well, I know I didn't see them, but it's out there.
I seen somebody else see him.
Yeah, I seen the scenes. You know.
So, Polar, what you got?
I have a little more local museum here in the San Francisco area. It is the it's the Art Institute of San Francisco, California. It's located at 800 Chestnut Street, in case you want to go see it. It was built in 1926, and so a lot of issues with this museum is that a lot of believe this is the reason why there's so many issues with this museum, is because it was built on over a Russian Hill cemetery that was damaged during a 1906 earthquake.
So you mean the paranormal activity
Yes,
is blamed
yes.
on the Russians?
I guess.
Well, it's entirely possible, because a lot of people don't know this. With the exception of 1 or 2 cemeteries, because San Francisco expanded so much, there aren't any cemeteries anymore in San Francisco. So the idea
Really?
that they built this on top of a cemetery is actually very plausible,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no room. That's how come Coloma, which is a city south of San Francisco, is just littered with cemeteries.
Cemeteries, they're just
Yes.
everywhere. That's funny. Yeah, so that's what we blame the paranormal on, is that
The Russians?
The Russians, yeah.
They're pissed off.
No, the building crew that built it on top of a Russian cemetery. But I mean, it was built in 1926, but the first reported paranormal incident didn't happen until 1947, when Bill Morehouse became the night watchman for the museum. And he was one of the college students, and he was tight on money, so he kind of made a deal to live there in the museum as well.
So he was there 24/7, basically. Well, when he wasn't in school.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't. He spent pretty much all of his free time there. And so this thing, the museum itself actually has one big watchtower, and that's where most of the paranormal incidents occur. And the first one being, he was on duty watching over the tower, being security guard like he is, and he heard footsteps outside his door running up the tower. And, doing his job, he comes out and he runs up all the way to the very top, and there's a door, and so he's ready to catch whoever it is running around causing havoc, and he opens the door saying, "Hey, I found you, I got you," and there's nobody there. So it kind of freaked him out. Pretty basic paranormal stuff,
Right.
haunting stuff.
Right.
And so could have brushed it off as he was crazy, until later on he had 5 of his friends over, and they were doing, I don't
5
know.
friend stuff.
Yeah.
Hood rat shit.
Yeah, whatever. Game night. Whatever.
World War II crap, yeah.
And exactly the same thing happened. They all heard footsteps, and so they started trying to chase this thing down, and every time they'd come close, there's nothing there.
So were they doing any work on the museum? Was there construction being done?
So yes, so later on, So another paranormal activity that happens was the security guards, not necessarily Bill, but others. That have worked there. When they go through, the procedure was to turn off all the lights, and save money, save power, and whatnot. And they would go through the museum and shut off all the lights. And when they go out to the gate and they go to lock the gate, they look. There's like 1 or 2 lights still on.
Right.
And they're like, I could have sworn, I turned them off, and and that happened quite often. And then one time, as the security guard went through and turned them all off, and then he goes out, and as he's leaving, all of the lights in the museum were on. So
right,
pretty freaky.
They're thought you was, to quote an 80s.
I would be pretty spooked. But the most paranormal activity reported out of the Art Institute was during construction. In 1968, they decided to remodel the tower. And at that point, all the incidents got worse. The crewmen, it got to the point where the crewmen seen so much paranormal stuff that wasn't sitting well with them. They started blaming everything on ghosts. Like their tools not working.
Ghost did it.
Yeah, pretty much. The ghost was blamed for health issues, personal problems, a tragic family incident, a motorcycle accident, and even a case of polio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we have polio carrying ghosts, huh?
Yeah.
Ghosts cause divorces.
It was Harvey, the poltergeist.
Yeah.
And then there was also even a mysterious incident that involved the destruction of several chairs and other furniture. That was the paranormal stuff, and they ended up closing the tower to the public, and just having the institute part open. And I guess the institute didn't have as much paranormal thing as the tower itself did, but they let in paranormal investigators and psychics to investigate and do what they do to see if they could find some problem, some solution
right
to the problems.
Why they causing divorce, right?
Yeah. So a group of psychics was brought in an attempt to contact the ghost. They tried a seance. But the only thing they were able to glean was that there were several frustrated spirits present, and then one medium actually spoke of having visions of a lost graveyard.
Okay, so maybe it is back
it could definitely relate to the Russian Hill Cemetery. Since then, the institute closed, and the official reason being seismic activity and an earthquake hazard.
Oh, okay.
But it could also be the paranormal activity that caused all the scary things. And then I wanted to cite weirdcalifornia.com, where I got most of my information
your
from.
Info?
Yep.
Well, my last museum, this one is insane. And I actually have something I wanted to show you guys kind of as proof. So my last museum is the Cleveland Museum of Art, located in Cleveland, Ohio. And they actually have a multitude of crazy things going on here. So they believe ghosts are actually hanging around, and one of them is actually the former director of the museum, a gentleman by the name of William Matheson Milkison. He hangs out in the original museum space known as the 1916 building. William, we'll call him William, came onto the board of the museum in 1919, and in 1930 he was promoted to the director, which he worked as until his retirement in 1958. He dies 20 years later in 1978, and it is believed that his ghost still comes to work. And they believe it's him because the ghost that they're seeing has his trademark tweed jacket, and he's got a folder tucked under his arm, the way that William was known to kind of do. Now, aside from him, other crazy things have been going on with exhibit items. So let's talk about the portrait of Jean-Gabriel Dethio at the signing of the Treaty of Vienna. This is an oil painting that was painted by Jacques-André Joseph Ovid, and it is believed that Jean-Gabriel is actually painted in the likeness of Jacques, Jock painted himself.
A selfie?
Kind of, yes. And they also think what's happening is with this particular painting, when they put this particular painting in a certain part of the museum, they started having a lot of electrical and mechanical issues. And the moment the painting was removed and placed into storage, all of those issues had stopped. But people also believe that this mysterious guy in gray is actually Jean Gabriel, basically coming to life, because staff and visitors have seen this mysterious man in gray, not only standing in the hall, but basically either vanishing or stepping into the painting. They've seen the image disappearing, basically. Now, in addition to him, both staff and visitors have seen a little boy racing around the corridors. But the thing is that the ghost of this little boy he resembles the painting of one of the little boys in the gallery. In fact, he's even wearing the exact same time period of clothing. So it's kind of like the same scenario. The ghost of this little boy is coming out of the painting, running around the museum, and then hopping back into the painting. Now, aside from these two entities coming in and out of their paintings, there's also a very curious situation surrounding a large ornate mirror. Many visitors have claimed that while standing in front of this mirror, they will see somebody standing behind them when they are otherwise alone, or know for a fact that no one's behind them. You know, you walk into this room and you're all by yourself, and you go to look at this mirror to check out your hair, and suddenly you've got...
I think that's like a fear that everybody has.
Correct.
Like, you just look up, is there somebody behind me?
There's an entity
Is my
behind
reflection moving? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the coolest / eeriest situation that has happened was one night a local news reporter was actually visiting the museum, and she was standing in front of the colossal head of Diva. And while she was standing in front of this, it's a huge, pottery thing, she decided to take some pictures. And she took the pictures, and she took a look at the pictures afterwards, and you can see very clearly, because it's this big thing, it's big and round. It's next to some glass paneling, like windows. In the glass reflection, you can see a very different face of the same statue, of the same diva, in the reflection of the glass. In fact, I have it here for you guys right now.
Oh, that's trippy. Oh. I'm going to post that to our website.
So
Facebook.
Right. So here it is. So this is the diva. You can see her mouth is open.
Oh, it's like,
oh yeah, that's crazy because for the listeners, I mean the head.
You gotta see it.
Yeah, the regular head looks normal
with the mouth closed.
Closed mouth, and like, are the eyes closed? Looks like the eyes are closed, and in the reflection, the face almost looks angry, like it's yelling.
With its mouth open, so you have a very different face happening in the reflection in the glass of the window pane.
That's trippy.
What if they try to recreate it?
They did. Oh. The museum actually did try to recreate this scenario. They couldn't do it. Now, the most paranormal thing, though, besides, I mean, this is creepy. This shit's creepy. I mean, again, I'll post the link so you can see it. But one of the best evidence that this particular museum has, they acquired back in 2015. While the curators were busy finalizing the exhibit of the painting of the modern garden from Monet to Matisse, these are very famous artists, Claude Monet and Henri Matisse, Jeffrey Streen, who was the director in design and architecture, took a picture of them, like working hard, cracking away the finalization of this particular exhibit. And when he took a picture, right above them in a balcony, you can very clearly see a man standing there. And the creepy thing is two things. One, this balcony was closed because they were working on important things down below. So they didn't want patrons anywhere near this exhibit. So they know that balcony, there was nobody there. And two, the figure looks exactly like Manet did in his final years. In fact, in one of his last pictures ever taken of him, you see him with a salt and pepper beard and a bowler hat, and he looks exactly like this picture, this final picture, in the picture that was taken in 2015 in the Cleveland Museum of Art. So it's quite possible that Manet is hanging around his old portraits
In Cleveland.
in Cleveland, Ohio.
Sounds like a terrible time.
Quite possibly.
Sacre bleu, what the fuck is this?
So I don't have a picture of that, but I will tag the article. And I mean, this is actually a video. It's a 3.5 minute video that it shows both the picture of Manet and this mysterious person up in the balcony and the very obvious reflection, the different reflection of this diva. I don't know, sculpture. That would be my guess. It's not a mask. It's like a big sculpture. So that is what we have for you tonight. On to business.
Facebook. We have a Facebook page. If you'd like to visit us and see all the cool pictures we were just talking about, search us at Where the Dark
Or send us a request on the Facebook page.
Yes, that's a request. Are we not open to public? Do they have to request?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to ask to join.
Yeah. Ask to join.
But
Well, you know what? I wonder if that deters people because, like, I mean, it helps keep out, like, bots and shit, though.
I know when I'm joining a group on Facebook, but if I have to answer a question, I'm probably not going to join it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 'Cause you have to answer, I think, 3 questions.
like, yeah, do you believe in the paranormal?
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, that's what I'm saying. On paper, it's perfect because, you know, are you serious about this?
But in the meantime, if you have a topic that you would like us to cover, other haunted this, other haunted that, or town, or serial killer, send us a request at Panda's favorite email, wherethedarkcornersare@gmail.com. Final thoughts, Panda?
I'm just secretly an appetizer for the new Napoleon movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you brought that up, and I was thinking about it, too.
yeah, I forgot it, that it's coming out.
Yes.
Freaking, what's his nuts?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Those are your final thoughts?
Would you like me to have a better one?
Your thoughts are stupid.
Yeah. My bad.
Polar Bear?
I was just thinking how this is us planning for the future, though. Like, we could do an episode of, like, a deal with the devil type thing, or, like, people that got rich and famous real quick, like, under mysterious circumstances.
Well, yeah, when the card...
Because anytime I see somebody get famous really fast, I'm like, that motherfucker sold his soul to the
Yeah,
devil.
it's usually the go-to. Who
Um,
let this guy in here?
the latest one was what's that guy's name? The new villain for Marvel.
Kane the Conqueror guy?
Yeah,
Jonathan Majors?
yeah.
Yeah, he's
Like,
in, like, everything.
He popped up
Everything.
out of nowhere, and then he was in every single movie that was coming out. He was in Creed, he was in Devotion, he was in all the Marvel movies, and it's just one after the other after the other. And I feel like maybe he was like, okay, I have enough money, I don't have to make this deal with the devil anymore. And then he got some weird ass accusations about like domestic abuse and stuff that he was cleared for.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't. He's good, Gall.
But yeah, it's just kind of funny, like, just boom, 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 rich, famous, everything, and then kind of like just a little setback. So
Right.
I don't know. Made a deal with the secret
Now,
society.
King Louis and Marie Antoinette didn't even make a deal with the devil. They got beheaded.
Yeah, see, there's benefits to it.
Okay. All right. Something to think about. All right. So until next time, please remember, only the few can find the beauty in the darkness, which is where we hope to meet you, where the dark corners are.